India spends towards the living room the most. It is where guests come, it is where people come. That is where the most pocket spend happens. Home is a very new category.
Yeah.
It's so new that a Flipkart today is trying to say, hey, we're going to double down and bet on this category because it is the future.
Do you believe that the impact of ONDC would be as revolutionary as UPI?
Without a doubt, we're trying to do something in a category that is not yet there. The inflection point is as India goes from a 3.5 trillion economy to the 10 trillion economy. This is where boom is going to happen. People start spending and people start consuming and people care about how their houses are.
Hi, this is Siddharth Aluwalia and welcome to The Neon Show. Forbes released a survey recently that only 13.8% of India's startup ecosystem is comprised of women founders. Today's guest is looking to shatter those barriers. Her e-commerce company closed India's largest seed round in 2021. We welcome 10 Club's founder Bhavna Suresh to The Neon Show. I would also like to thank our sponsors, Prime Venture Partners, for sponsoring The Neon Show. Hope you enjoy it.
I also built a business prior to this in real estate, and I think just personal bias, I like spaces, and I always have thought that however small your space is a reflection of you,
Yeah.
right? Just like fashion, I think there's a style quotient
Yeah.
to it. I think I've always been somebody from the time I was a teenager. My space was it had to reflect my mood and what I was being at that point. So I think it was always that. So I think as I kept talking to people, I realized this was such a broken category, right? And I think when this opportunity came in, we looked at it from all lenses. And then I did not have a fully formed idea. And I'll be very honest about it, right? We just said that home is a huge category. Everyone who's tried building a business in this category has struggled for multiple reasons. One, the market not being ready. Two, maybe it's still not maybe, it still is a very, very, very informal category. And it's expected for an economy like India that is just on the start of its consumption trajectory. It's electronics, fashion, everything personal that comes in, and home comes a little later. So I think for me, that was what was super exciting, right? And when I was having these conversations, like I said, the first business we bought was almost we bought everything in like a 3-4 month period, right? But we spent 1 year before that having hundreds of conversations.
Yeah.
And also, as we were having those conversations, we were going back and refining our thesis a little bit. So I think my conversation with all of the founders outside of India, all of the Indian investors, everybody who we pitched to and killed the idea, it's all a learning, like you said, right? You have to listen and say, hey, what are they saying? What am I not paying attention to? So we took a contrary bet where we said we would not buy brands, right? And that is something I was very clear about because this category does not have brands. They have businesses. And that's what all of these people who are moving to marketplaces and Amazon were buying impulse buy products. Most of them didn't remember who they bought from. It was just who was the right price, who had the highest reviews, ratings, and let me buy from them. But it was consumption that was growing slowly for convenience. So I think that's what we built on, and we were very cognizant of there is an unnatural COVID spike that has to fall once
Yeah.
markets open, and that is why we said we will buy these businesses 100%, and that was a very scary bet to take at that point, right? Because there's no brand. You've sold a company,
Yeah.
I've sold a company, and while there are many romantic stories to tell,
More are horror stories.
it's not horror, it's not that the person on the other side is bad or
Yeah.
anything. It's just you have given this your blood, sweat, and
Yeah.
tears. It's the question I asked you also, right?
Yeah.
How do you tell an entrepreneur what to do? Most of the time, it's not easy.
Yeah.
So I think that was my base that I'm saying as we spoke and watched businesses and we really understood it. It's very easy in India to keep throwing products into the market and somebody will buy it at some price, right? And that's what happens in marketplaces. So there was no depth to any product. It was just everybody was throwing everything and people were buying because India was on the start of this consumption.
Yeah.
So I think these were all the patterns that we saw and we said, listen, we can either go 0 to 1 and start building this, but that's a very difficult journey in this category, very specific to this category, right? and I have multiple theses, and I think these were theses in 2021. But I think sitting in 2023, I have not been more confident of it now, having run this for 2 years, and this impractical idea that I had in 2021 actually kind of figuring out a way to do it. I think our answer was people are buying lawn equipment, and every home now has plants and live plants,
Yes.
and people feel a sense of calm with it. There are also homes that buy a lot of artificial flowers, and if you just look at this category, there is a direct association with calmness, nature, green, and then there is a aesthetic, beautiful
Yeah.
flower. Both are important, and we operate in both categories now, and they both kind of cater to two different kind of modern India, but they're both important, and they're both not happening. They're all happening on marketplaces, right? They're not coming to a website to buy this. I think these were some of the theories that we had, and we said the death in it is a known problem in the retail industry. Home has the added difficulty of, one, it's very impulse most of the time, unless you're in a deep life stage of
Yeah.
setting up a house. That happens very rarely. It happens once or twice in everybody's lifetime. But a lot of it is impulse buy, and India's data started to show that, right? But I think the part that I started seeing that was missing in everything was, one, everybody gets so excited building brand and telling the story that I think, at least me as a founder, because I had debt,
You were super careful.
and see, I don't know if I knew we would go into times like this and macro
Yeah.
like this, whether I would take this crazy bet, right? We were all in a very optimistic scenario, and like I said, we took 32. We raised 7 million in equity. We raised 32 million in debt, and that was our 40 together
Yeah.
stitched up round. We got 500, 600 more
Yeah.
after the round, and that's how it became 40. Out of the 32 million, we used 6 million for pure acquisition. That debt was not to touch anything else. It was 6 million with the caveat that we would buy 100% of the business right up front. We would pay the value upfront so we could take the business and do whatever we want with
Yeah.
it without being answerable and having to just learn and break and whatever, right? Luckily, some of the early believers, they're one of America's oldest venture firms. Again, if somebody in today's market told me Forex would change the way it did, I think life would be interesting. But I think many things changed. But I'm so glad that that thesis of buying 100% held, because as soon as we bought it, the market started to change. COVID, cities started opening up, people started going back. But I think it was super interesting for us to learn at that scale. And I think if you can run a marketplace business in India, because our customers are deeply value conscious, and if I have to say ruthless, right? There's no room for too much error, right? Especially on marketplace. So if you can run that operation well, I think you're set for,
For a long
honestly,
period of time.
any other kind of distribution channel is a cakewalk, right? And I don't say this lightly. I think this is after speaking to a bunch of founders in the ecosystem. They're like, you're crazy. You're running like a heavy logistics, heavy goods thing, which is not fully played out yet on marketplaces that are extremely ruthless. If you can build that muscle and you survive that, we just tried launching offline a few weeks ago because now we believe we know how to run marketplace as a distribution. And I say we took this because it was very clear for us to buy different categories. We bought the garden business, we bought a home nursery, we bought what was a mix between a sports brand and a home gym business. And these were all auxiliary needs for somebody's home. So if you look at your home, there is a plant. There will always be a fitness corner in most modern Indian homes now because health is becoming so critical. Some form, in some small form.
Be it a yoga mat.
Be it a yoga mat for sure, or dumbbells, or like ankle weights or something, right? It's always there in one little corner. And I think the baby room became interesting.
That's the highest spend in that period of time in a person's life.
Yeah, I think it was the opportunity came along and it was something we wanted to learn from.
Yeah.
What we did not buy are the core, what we knew is India spends towards the living room the most. It is where guests come, it is where people kind of come. That is where the most pocket spend happens. Kitchen is usually utilitarian because that's the way it is. But most of our homes net are functional,
Yeah.
right? India has, however modern we become, I think the values that we've carried on
The
from generation
frugality.
is, I don't know, I don't know if it's frugality, right? But all of us, whichever income bracket we belong to, it has to make sense from a value point of view, whatever that is. So value for money will always be part of India. I think quality is very subjective, but I think it's important. As you win trust, quality is important. And I think functionality. When you look, at least more homes that I go to, however beautiful, if it's not functional, it is not an Indian home. So I think these are things that are almost given in India. And I think in the modern distribution channel, which is the marketplace online, no one's really cracked this. People have cracked it in the offline retail world, and very established names have cracked this in the retail world. No one's really done it well in the online world. I think that was our bet, saying it is important for us to go everywhere, right? But no true Indian home business has been accessible. And is there a way to kind of give modern India a spin saying, we will take your value for products, we will certify quality, and we've actually taken it to an extent because it's been a problem statement for all of us, right? When we buy something, if we buy a cheap price, we don't know we don't know what quality is going to turn up, right? And that is, India is a low trust market to solve for all of that. I think those were the simple thesis. And like I said, I was very, very paranoid because I was very confident we'll tell a story. We have a clear vision. We know what we want to do. But I really knew what will mess this business up is operations. And that is what we heard again and again and again. So we started there. We said, let's just do the hardest job. If we fail here, there's no point saying all the promises that we will say. Let's get past this. If we get past this, we'll definitely build it out. And I think that's a very long answer to your very small question.
I want to know, some more details about your childhood. So I have something prepared, right?
About my childhood.
Yeah. Because I believe, right, whoever you are today as a business person, running a small empire.
Small empire, huh?
I would call it a small empire, right?
Sometimes we call it a circus also. But yeah.
Right. Today, eight. There are 8 brands that you are running, or 8 labels, as you say them, that you are running today.
We only have one brand. It's called
10 Club,
Homes.com.
Yeah, but how many companies that you have bought in different categories?
So I think that was the biggest piece that I really, I said this 2 years ago, then I kept quiet. Then I think last year I only spoke to Shantanu once and I told him this wild idea and he said, you're crazy. And then I kept quiet. And I think this year, just about 3 weeks ago, we pulled it off, right? We basically said, we bought all these businesses and labels, right? It's almost distribution in our head, right? Because we wanted to buy it. We bought 8,000 SKUs. Day one of operations, no experience doing this. So day one, we had 8,000 SKUs with us. No systems, no data, no processes, legacy warehouses. We learned how to run them slowly and optimize it. We picked 200 of them. That's it, right? We took the 200 and we moved it into brand 10clubhomes.com. And everything else, we kind of killed slowly. The 200, we found a way to kind of deepen it, fix quality, fix aesthetic, fix packaging, be very sure that this is what the consumer wants. And only then we found a way to kind of stamp 10 Club Homes on it like a certification. And now we're taking these 200 products as close to the customer, which is through our website, through stores, through everything, right? So that's the journey. So yeah, I think for us, we have 200 SKUs in one brand today.
Got it. I want to start with your childhood, right? Where did you grow up, and how much the city that you grew up in changed you as a person?
So I grew up a little everywhere. I'm not an army kid. So
Usually,
I'm
army kids say that.
exactly,
So,
that's why I followed it up with I'm not an army kid. I think my parents were very young when they
yeah,
had me, and they moved around a lot, and I was also a restless kid, so as soon as I could make a decision, I
yeah.
moved around a lot too. Early part of I'm a Bangalore, for I think for all things home, it's Bangalore.
And you are a Kannadiga,
No, I'm a Malayali. I'm a Malayali, three generations Bangalore, but never lived in Bangalore really.
and the surname that you carry is your father's name, Suresh.
Yes, Suresh is my father's first name. So where we come from, you take the mother's name and the father's name. So my house name is my mother's,
Okay.
so it's Chatambat. Uh, but different couples do it a
Yeah.
little differently. I think my parents decided to call me Chatambat Bhavna Suresh. So I got my mother's house name and my father's first name.
Got it.
Yeah.
And your first job was Mahindra, right?
Yeah.
And you spent like 1 year, 3 months almost there.
Think a little bit more. I don't know. I think a little bit more. I dates were a little messed up because I joined the other place. There was a so yeah.
Yeah, but it was always clear to you that entrepreneurship is your path, or it became clear over a period of time to you that once you started getting more and more independent and more exposure to where more ownership was given to you.
See, I don't come from a business family. I did not know what entrepreneurship was.
Yeah,
I come from a very simple middle class family. Everybody salaried in a way.
yeah,
Um, so no, I don't think entrepreneurship as a word or thought or
yeah,
business was even. I like being independent, right? I like making money and being independent,
yeah,
and that's all I knew. I was quite okay doing jobs. Like
yeah.
Mahindra was very exciting for me, right? I didn't get paid anything, but it was fun. I loved it. I think when I joined that first startup with 22 feet was when I suddenly like loved work. Like, it was just so exciting. And that was, I think that's what happens, right? When you don't come close to business families and stuff, your first startup experience, it's like tasting
It's
blood.
very very special.
It's like tasting blood. You either
Yeah,
love it or you hate
yeah,
it, right? And even in the journey of 10 Club, a lot of people who've never worked at startups came in very early. And my conversation with very senior people was, it's like Bombay, it's like New York. Those things that people say, right? You enter and you either love it
yeah.
or you can never explain why you love it or why you hate it. I think startups are like that. It's you love it or you can never adjust. So yeah, I think that was what it was for me. It was 22 Feet was not a startup, but it was a startup for its time.
It was a self discovery mechanism for you, I would say, because then you discovered that hey,
See,
this
I
is
think
my
I
path.
liked, I did not ever project and say, I will do this on my own, right? There's a lot of self doubt and there
Yeah,
is a lot of, and I care, like, I don't come from like intense money or anything, right? I come from, you need to have this much in your bank,
yeah,
you need to take care of yourself. So I think those plunges are, it built slowly. Like, so I think it was not like one day I woke up
yeah.
and I said, yeah, I did it. This happened. Business school happened. A month into business school, I was obsessed. Um, I was really scared. I think that was the most scared I was because there was a loan. I had gone outside. I had still tried doing it as much on a scholarship. I really did not want to take
Yeah.
money from my father. Um, all of that, right? So I think that was when I was the most scared and I failed. So I think that failure it was hard. That first one it was hard. I almost said I will never do it again. Uh,
But then Rocket Internet came and then you said yes to them.
See, Rocket Internet was not. It was not Rocket. It was Rocket with a bunch of other people with a
Yeah.
ridiculous idea. See, the answer was there. I feel like there was somebody. I think that was what I needed, which was I was like, I will not do something absolutely crazy again. I need to have 3 or 4 reasons why I would do it, and I would do it. So while I say the story like it was, just one night I changed my mind and
Yeah.
I went, I think I was at that right space where I knew I needed to like leave, because if I stayed here, the healing would have taken more time.
Yeah.
I think I just changed and I got this opportunity where I said I will go give it my best shot. Uh, and yeah, I took it slowly. Like I said, this one, there was a potential idea, there was a thesis that there was an opportunity, and there was existing limited money. So I think it was a build on, and I was ready for that. Um, yeah, learned a lot there.
It was not 100% risk. You were a CEO and a owner, but uh, with a certain set of equity sponsored by a bunch
Yeah,
of
so I
kids.
think it was not one of those ground up
Yeah.
like swings, right? I think it was the best thing that happened to me after the first failure,
Yeah.
because the first failure scares you, humbles you, and makes you realize you're not everything you make yourself out to be, right? Like there are 20 ways you will fail.
Yeah.
I think with that humbling experience and a little bit of a safety net, it was 100% entrepreneurship, right? When I talk about it now, but it had a little bit of a safety net, and I think that just gave me this intense freedom
Or
to learn
confidence back again.
slowly. It did not come overnight. It took time with every win, every correction. So I think the first year I was still completely like on my guard, right?
Yeah.
Because I knew nothing. And then I think slowly as the wins started coming, confidence grows. You make your mistakes and confidence grows. But yeah, I think that Lamudi for me it was a fantastic learning opportunity.
If you now have to reflect, right? Why do you think Rocket Internet and the group took a bet on you?
I mean, uh, I think they came to college and it was not even the person who spoke to me, right? See, Rocket Internet was not in its glory days when I spoke to them.
Yeah.
They had like this amazing rise, and they kind of hired investment bankers and ex McKinsey people and all of that. And I think when I spoke to them, it was when I met somebody at some career fair in HEC, and I did not sit for any career fair because by then I was building Style Bank. So I think it was one of these weird conversations. I sat and had coffee with somebody and I was telling them what I was doing. And I think they collected my details saying, let's stay in touch.
Yeah.
And my email from them was very weird. It was one of those almost like very regularly I got a have you shut down yet? Not have you succeeded? What are you doing? It is, are you done? Are you ready now? So I think it was one of those things where I don't think somebody from a very prestigious like school with the right things would have said yes to a crazy kind of opportunity like this, right? It was a distressed asset that they didn't want to close, and they said one last shot. So yeah, I think they found a failed entrepreneur and said, and I actually see, I don't want to say failed, but tried entrepreneur,
Yeah.
right? It's the thesis we've applied at 10 Club also. I think as we did this year, I think it needs a different kind of structure to come and say, I'm going to do something completely crazy or I will drive. So we actually started hiring a lot of ex founders.
Ex D2C founders?
Yeah. So I think as we kind of did this and got into 2023 and we had to kind of push for this consolidation, we started hiring a lot of seasoned D2C
Got it.
founders. And we said, if you've been through that and I've been through that, I feel the mentality with which you come back to build is very different. And I feel because I was given that security after my first failure, it changed my trajectory a lot. For me, that's important.
That can be summarized as for entrepreneurs or anybody operates ownership with a limited downside.
I actually have this conversation with everybody. I'm like, listen, I've been exactly where you are. Healing is a process. It comes in waves. You feel like you've healed, you've not. It'll take some time.
Yeah.
And if you throw yourself into a structured environment right now, chances are you will go crazy. So you need a place where you can be yourself and run, but your brain cannot take the risk right now. So yeah, this is the bet I had with Lamudi. if I can even create one, and I'm sure I'm
Yeah.
100% sure everybody who's come in as a next entrepreneur will do their healing and will
Yeah.
go back and start again. I'm so confident, like 100%. Yeah.
I want to jump tracks right now, right? You are in e-commerce,
Hmm.
right? You are selling on marketplaces. How to a guest, right? First, I would like to share your understanding of ONDC and how is ONDC even impacting your business?
See, I've just started having conversations with ONDC, right?
And what is ONDC?
I think to super simplify it, because I do not want to get into technicalities and say something wrong,
Yeah.
I am definitely not the expert. I understand it, and my simple version of it is it's almost an enabler,
Okay.
right? It is what UPI has done for the financial world and how it has enabled digital payments to become as easy. ONDC becomes that underlying distribution partner for anything to do with commerce, right? The reason I say we have not gotten deeply active is we've just started having the conversation. We need to remember commerce in India in any form. The meat of it is groceries
Yeah.
and daily staples. That is what ONDC is very, very clear on trying to consolidate and make happen. It's basically enabling onboarding. I mean, at the end of the day, if you have to do commerce today, distribution is king,
Yeah.
and distribution is in the online world. Getting onto an Amazon is so different from getting onto a Flipkart. There are so many hurdles with from a seller and a buyer's perspective, right? Like the onboarding processes, the structures are so different that they become hurdles. But if you can start making what you want to sell available easy, and buyers have access to seeing what is available across, it just makes the ecosystem so much more evolved. That is the enabler that ONDC is trying to play.
And how are you trying to at 10 Club trying to work with it?
So we've just gotten on like 2 weeks ago. I think our conversation again was it was too early last year because we needed to consolidate and bring it under one
Yeah.
brand. As soon as we did that, we of course got onto ONDC through we are not a direct network partner, but through a network partner onto ONDC. But I think we've had a very honest conversation saying home is a very new category.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so new that a Flipkart today is trying to say, hey, we're going to double down and bet on this category because it is the future. There is a lot of complexity with home, right? Logistics has to get built out. So I think it's a slow process. But if you look at what's happening in this category, whether it's quick commerce, it's definitely starting to get into it. So if you start looking at the Swiggies of the world, they do have a home
Yeah.
category now because it is an important category. So I think it is the start of the spike, and ONDC still is very early, and they've also told us that baby steps. We're still really focused on groceries and then maybe a little bit more of lifestyle, and then it kind of gets into the other categories.
And you believe that the impact of ONDC would be as revolutionary as UPI?
I think without a doubt, having run marketplace online distribution core for
Yeah.
a while, and understanding how simple the hurdles are and how detrimental they are to the customer or the seller, I think it can be a game. I think it's a game changer, right? And the way we've kind of implemented UPI and just the adoption across India, it takes time. But then I think in India, once it reaches that inflection point, just the uptick becomes so fast. And just knowing the consumer base that we have, I think it's just going to change the face of commerce. So I'm personally very, very excited to see just the maturity that will start coming in from every front.
Got it. And you ran a business in Philippines and returned back to
Yeah.
India, right? Uh, what made you, was it emotional decision or was it a decision based on the market size that you came back to India?
So we sold Lamodi. I think going into Lamodi, I was very sure that we were building to get acquired, right? It was a distressed asset that needed to be turned around
Yeah.
and sold for every stakeholder to make money. We had a timeline in mind. All of it was
Yeah.
met, right? I'd said I'll take 1 year at a time. I stayed for 4.5 years at that place. Um, we got stuck in COVID. I think as soon as the acquisition happened, Varun and I tried traveling. We got stuck. We could never go back home. Um, 10 Club was, like I said, it came to me. It was not something that I dreamt up. It came as an opportunity, and I spent time evaluating it as an opportunity. When it came to me, I evaluated it for India. So I think it was not gut, it was not emotional.
Got it.
It was very calculated. Yeah.
Got it. It was not like I want to be back to my roots as an entrepreneur. So, did that play or help in making that decision for you?
No, I see the answer is home for me is everywhere, right?
Okay.
I think home for me is people, and I say that with a lot of joy, right? For me, home is people and the space I choose to make my own. Um, I think I knew I would come back to India and build for sure. I don't know if it was, if I have to put it, I don't think it was something I was actively thinking of, or it was also the entrepreneur in me who had tried building for India and failed. And I wanted to do it once more when I had the courage. If somebody had told me I would come back so quickly and try it, I would have not believed it. But this seemed like timing and just the opportunity together. So it was not just emotion, it was definitely a bunch of things stacking up together.
And you have been an India operator in India, entrepreneur in India twice now, right? 2014-15 time frame, and now again, right? Like a gap of 6-7 years. What has changed, or what is currently the change that you are observing happening in India at a mass level?
I mean, it's just one, I was very young back then. So I want to say I was a very clueless founder. So I have changed dramatically. So the lens I look at it from also has changed. But I mean, everything, right? Everything. I think the conversations around it, the acceptability around non business families kind of encouraging. I think Shark Tank has changed the
Yeah,
face of entrepreneurship in India, which is amazing. I think India has always been a very entrepreneurial country. We've just never called it
yeah.
that. But yeah, I think it's insane. Like, every young person, and it's not even young. I think that's what's interesting. I think it's happening. There's a lot of conversation around the young because, of course, the 20-year-olds are the
Yeah.
future. So it is important to invest there. But I think it's amazing to watch people in their late 40s, early 50s, 60s take very calculated swings. I think that's also it's quite interesting, right? So yeah, I think funds have matured, money has changed, and that is important for an ecosystem. I think regulations, compliance is starting to be taken very seriously, which is important for an ecosystem to mature. So yeah, I think we're still at the start, but
And this is about the ecosystem, right? The startup ecosystem. What about the general life? Because you are dealing with consumers day in, day out, right? Do you think what you are building right now would have been viable at that point in time?
see, I
Or
think what I built that time was not viable at that point of time. It was definitely way before its time.
yeah,
And I still think it's not a model that's fully played out in India, right? Even anywhere else in the world. It's a difficult
yeah,
model. Um, I think what I'm trying to do is in the home category is still in its very early innings, right? So I think if we had come in and we were trying to build something in beauty and fashion, the conversation would be very different. And I can give you that time frame. So I think it's not as simple as it's what you want to build and when, right? The timing is also quite specific. It's not broad
yeah,
strokes. So um I mean, everybody says this in the consumer space, right? Building 100 crore fashion business today is a very clear possibility because adoption from the user has become widespread. They want
yeah.
homegrown brands. The infrastructure is built out. It's a very exciting time to do that. But your proposition has to be very deep and very clear. right? And there will be takers. I think beauty is at the start of that kind of inflection point, and we'll get there in a couple of years or sooner because the repeat rate is so high. I think home is like a good 2 to 3 years from even starting to see a serious uptick. Uh, but I think that's what's exciting. It's just such a large category, and there are so many problems that to build a large enough business, you need to start now and get your foundation now. And that's why I'm not in a hurry to like acquire all the customers
Yeah.
right now. It's not possible. It's a journey for the next 5, 7, 10 years minimum.
And you mentioned you are okay building it as a lifestyle business rather than as a venture capital like business.
No, don't get me wrong. I've raised a lot of money to say lifestyle business. It's not a
A
lifestyle.
1,000 crore business can be a lifestyle business, right? If growing 10%, 15% year on year.
See, I don't. I don't know, right? I don't think I'm a lifestyle business kind of person. I'm too
Okay.
restless for that. So I think the answer is, when I got into this, I think the way we kind of structured our cap table, and I went to Fireside Ventures, who are consumer focused investors who are marketers, and I'm not a marketer.
Yeah.
Right? And I had a very honest conversation with them, and I said, y'all know that it takes time. We're trying to do something in a category that is not, it's not yet there. The inflection point is, as India goes from a 3.5 trillion economy to the 10 trillion economy, this is where boom is going to happen, right? People start spending and people start consuming and people care about how their houses are. But it's a long journey till there. So for me, I'm like, hey, if you're here to be here 5, 10 years and mean it, then I'm the entrepreneur to back. But if you're going to make me grow this 80, 100% year on year, I don't think it's possible.
Yeah.
I think it just puts very wrong measures. And we all face it, right? Every time we have to go raise capital, and it is important. You have these weird like metrics that you have to chase. I think it makes the foundation very weak. So my answer is, we are all here to build a really, really large outcome, but I am very clear that it will take time.
And you are very closely connected with consumer pulse, right? You have 200 SKUs across various categories. The current global macroeconomic environment, two wars going on, first time in global history, right? Two wars
Yeah.
going on in parallel, Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Gaza, and they both are the such wars, they don't have an end in sight,
Yeah.
right? How are they impacting the consumer, the spending, and the various other factors in India right now?
So, see, I think my honest opinion about this is, one, we tend to react in very short time frames, right? And that's not the right way to look at anything.
Yeah.
Right? We talk about quarter to quarter, and like this Diwali, this festive season for us has been a little different from most, right? Diwali has been pushed by a few weeks. That changes the way consumers buy. Everybody in India, a large part of India waits for sale season,
Yeah.
right? People push their purchases by a few months for this to happen. So, when you look at July and August information, sometimes if you compare it to last year, Diwali was in October last year. Now
Yeah.
it's in November. So people have moved some of their buying a little. We do work around calendars. We do work around seasons. So it's very seasonal. It's very price conscious. I mean, so I think for me, we are in such a one. I am close to the customer, but I don't know who my end customer really is yet. Now I will. But for us, because we were working on marketplaces, and we do like 10,000 units a day in sale, right? We do volume. We don't do, So it's a lot of people. We service 15,000 pet codes. That's the lesson we have.
Yeah.
There are high days, there are low days. This time during sale season, we had a peak in the online boom, but 3 weekends at a row there were cricket matches. And
Yeah.
when there's cricket in India,
Everything stops.
Right? It rationalizes over the next few days,
Yeah.
right? Because buying happens. In our category, it's impulse plus it's requirement. So it happens. And it's not like fashion where there's a peak. There is sustained buying that happens. But these small changes change day to day, right? And Yeah, I think this time all of the big sales that happened, there was India Pakistan, which was quiet.
Yeah.
Like that day was quiet, and it all happened on a weekend where boom buying happens. So that buying got spread out to weekdays a little bit. So, and you can tell categories like garden for us didn't get affected very badly, but a little bit of home gym and sports, the drop was massive on a match day. So yeah, I
But
think that's what happens in the commerce world.
but this is like what is happening in India, right? The cricket and everything else. What about the global thing? How are they impacting?
See, I don't think it's just consumption, right? It's also everybody's looking at unit economics a little bit
Yeah.
more. Everybody is looking at profitability and cash flow a little bit more. It's public information that even marketplaces are kind of having for the first time, serious conversations about money, logistics,
Yeah.
right? So I think it's bringing a different kind of discipline in sellers and brands, but it's also I do think there's a little controlled spending at the value level, right? If you look at numbers, I think the super wealthy in the luxury segment is doing really well. Like luxury car sales are out of whack, but there is a little bit of fear, right? There is, in today's connected world, people are listening, hearing, like there is a recession talk everywhere. There
Yeah.
is no sign of it, but there is a
And this
conversation.
talk has been on for the last 18
18
months.
months. So I think this kind of plays in many people's, at least the online shoppers
Yeah.
world, right? I think I cannot talk about the offline world yet. I don't have enough data, but in the online world, there is. I think and this is a little controversial, but I think it will happen. I think we overestimated how quickly it will happen, is premiumization. Again, it may be happening in the fashion category and the beauty category, but I think in some other categories, we are still value buyers. I don't think premiumization is happening as quickly. It may happen in the next 2-3 years. And that's why I think sometimes when we assess India, because we're so heterogeneous and we're so
Yeah.
different, sometimes we're in too much of a hurry to club everybody together. But I think it's all going to happen. It can happen in 12 months or in 48 months. And that's the beauty of India. I think over a period of time, it all definitely stacks up. Just look at how dramatically different we are as a country compared to 2016 or 17 to where we are today. I think 5 years has changed the way we buy differently.
And I assume most of your buyers would be who have income between, as a household, 50,000 to 1 lakh rupees a month.
50,000 to a lakh. No, actually, see, the answer is that is the goal, right? And if you've not caught this by now as an entrepreneur, I have very audacious goals, but I think to get to audacious goals, you need to break it down to realistic. I think our end super simple thing is we want to have something for everybody who's part of modern India and new India. Now that can be simple stuff, and that's what we're working towards, right? But 18-20 months into building a new company, I cannot be something for everybody. That's not right. So we started off saying, and these are actual numbers of people who spend in the home category. This category, the number that you said, will be shopping for fashion, potentially electronics online for discounts, and fashion for maybe just entering the beauty segment. But I think home is too new for them to buy online. We're looking at consumers, households that have anywhere between 20 lakhs to 30 lakhs annum in income, approximately. We do think there is a higher spectrum that will start adopting early because they are also valuable. $20 to $40, $50 lakh annum household in India spends about anywhere between 1 lakh to 2.5 lakhs a year on everything to do with their house. That is the spending disposable income for this household. And that is the interesting kind of entry point for us to start. And as we expand, of course, we want to. We also think the consumers will get into a bracket where they're willing to spend. I don't think they are today, but 3 years from now, for sure.
And which is a category, that you think, right? For example, you were also in childcare, right? You uh, that you find that even the 50,000 to 1 lakh rupees monthly spend you can tap into very quickly, because for all the e-commerce entrepreneur, all the sellers
So
listening
we
on
don't do childcare, we do child room,
child to be, yes,
right? So we're trying to do everything that you find in a house room wise,
yeah,
right? In the baby room, we started with blankets, and we thought it was super interesting because what we bought were only entry level blankets, like blankets that were 150 to 300 rupees, right? That people without,
sure.
it was cute looking blanket. It was almost like you can buy it everywhere, but that is what people bought, and that's the business that we bought. And we then took it to like a category that does 150 to 300 rupees, 300 rupees to 500 rupees, 500 rupees to 700 rupees. We went up to 1,000 and we created a spectrum. But I think 70% of our buys happen between the 200 to 500, 700 rupee category. Anything above 700 rupee in this segment falls. So while I think there is a segment of India that will exponentially spend on their kid, I still think value buyers will not spend more than this. We started at the opening price point and we kind of expanded to 1,000.
Yeah.
And we realized that the sweet spot was between this 250, 300 to 700 rupees. A little bit more than that, consumption dropped. So while our ticket item was higher, the volume dropped. So we believe this is the sweet spot for where people want to consume at large.
And this is across your categories now.
So this was specifically because you asked me
Your
about
baby
baby.
category.
See, I think if you're trying to build a pure D2C business with a design language and a niche, you have to charge more than that. But because we are trying to build for the value segment and
Yeah.
mass India, for us, accessibility is very important, which means we don't want to be a marketplace business. We now want to take this, what we've learned, to stores and distribution offline and through the
And
website.
build 10 Club as a brand now, right?
Yeah, and go as, see, my thing here is, like I said, the goal here is I should be available on quick commerce
Yeah.
in the next 2 years, right? For you to know my brand and say, I need something, I will close my eyes and buy it.
Yeah.
I think that's the goal for everything home, which is if you want to walk into a store and experience a full store,
Yeah.
that is also possible. So that's the idea. But our best selling is, like I said, garden. It was one of the early businesses we bought. We nurtured it, and there was suddenly this boom of home gardeners. We didn't sell pretty stuff. We sold a lot of utility, and that's what sells in volume in
Yeah.
India. We tried selling pretty planters. It sold, but it never hit like critical mass. But I think that's the idea. We sell pots for like 70 rupees, plastic pots, and that goes in volumes and volumes and volumes. We also sell huge plant stands for 4,000 rupees. So depending on what you want, there is a range for everything.
One other, the last topic that I want to cover is, right, you have worked across so many countries now, right? Uh, do you see in India a bias towards either a for or a against, a bias toward women CEOs?
No, I think
I think we have come beyond it, because earlier it was said
see, I
that,
think
right?
it's still unfamiliar, right? And I don't think it's woman. I think it's anything, right? That is not known and familiar. You have a checkbox of. I think we've kind of reached that point where it's very normal
Yeah.
to accept founders. I don't think female founders are not common anymore, right? And I think the last couple of years, the numbers that have come up is quite exciting.
Before you just dived
Yeah.
in, I want to share one number, right? So Forbes shared a report that women entrepreneurs only comprise like 13.76% of Indian startup ecosystem, and they said, is there a chicken and egg situation where women founders are being told that they can't lead successful startups, but the reason for that is that there aren't enough opportunities that get invested in women startups, women founded.
See, I think this is a very, very complex problem, right? And I've tried answering this many times. One, for myself.
Yeah.
Two, I think generally for the few of us who are
Yeah.
in the ecosystem and are active. And the women co-founders in the ecosystem may not have been connected in the past,
Yeah.
but we all are now deeply connected,
Yeah.
right? We've realized that we're a few of us, and we're all learning, and we're all realizing that we need to cheer each other up. There is a WhatsApp group that all of us talk about.
Yeah, Nancy, and you are
Yeah,
both
we're
on the
all
same
on
group.
it,
That's how you.
right? We're all on it, and it's a first step. It means it's very little, but I think that's the first step that most female founders need, right? Our stories are pretty much the
Yeah.
same. And you need somebody to tell you that, listen, this is not personal, right? We are not the stereotype. We are new. So a lot of it is unconscious, it's not intentional. Some of it may be intentional, but what are you going to do about it, right? You can sit down and beat yourself about
Yeah.
it, or you can say, hey, and sometimes there's a deep power in collective suffering. I don't
Yeah.
know, right? Like, you get very lonely when you think it's only you, but when you realize it's happened to five other
Yeah.
people, suddenly you feel you're able to brush it off a little easier. And I think that's what's happening. I think we're still a very young ecosystem. I think the rate of I think women founders is a problem globally, and it is going to take time to catch up around the world. It still has to catch up in the formal workforce. I think the startup ecosystem is still so young compared to that. But because there's innovation, technology, lesser rigid systems, we will catch up faster. Of course, there is a capital problem. There is, of course, an allocation problem. There is, of course, a data problem. There aren't enough female founders who've made it yet for people to be able to say, I will validate this and put my money
Like
to it.
Ghazal today is going IPO, right? So that's would break a lot of glass ceilings.
Exactly. And then there are so many people, like in the last 5 years, it has changed so many
Yeah.
things, right? And yeah, it's a journey. And I think if you'd asked me this question 2 years ago, my answer would have been a little different. I think last year would have been a little different. I think all of us are on our journey of, we are all changing and maturing, right? My
Yeah.
answer cannot be the same that it was five
Yeah.
years ago.
Absolutely.
And I think my answer today is, I think I think there's a super collective power in knowing there are so many of us at different stages. The minute somebody feels a bias, I think the fact that we can say it and say, hey, this happened, and somebody else says, yeah, this happened, and then you're like, okay, I'm not alone. Now you brush it off and move on.
Yeah.
I think that's how it moves. I think it will happen as more women founders go out there, break glass ceilings, talk about their stories.
Yeah.
I think more openly. Maybe not talk about their open stories to everyone. I think share within groups. I think it will change.
But are these questions, like, for example, right? Have they brushed away? Have they gone away? Like, how do you handle work-life balance? Do you feel intimidated by being the only women in the boardroom, or where's your business partner? Who's the CEO among both of you?
See, I think smart female founders will read about this. I think a lot of them will expect it. I think it's very hard to say you come and become a founder without having lived a regular life, right?
Yeah.
There's bias at every stage, school, college,
Yeah.
right? It's like I said, stories are almost the same. It's how you react to
Yeah.
it that changes your trajectory. I think the ecosystem is mature enough to not be as blunt about these things. It's changed. That I think has changed. But I think if you are very conscious and you are afraid that you're going to be asked that, chances are it makes a situation that needn't be uncomfortable in any way. So my best version of this story, and I think after being in the ecosystem, is everyone is on this journey of maturing. Some people have realized, maybe thinking it, but will not vocalize it. Some of them, without realizing, vocalize it. Now, if they say something like this, you need to have the courage to say, it is just me. And know your odds. The odds are a little lower for you. I think the faster you make peace with this, and the faster you become so much more resilient, right? And I think the rate at which it's changing, the more resilience you have, the better founder you become. And I think today I see a lot of founders saying, listen, we're in a capitalist world, right? No one's here to do any kind of social service,
Yeah.
or it's not. It's a capital. You're getting into a capitalist world. You need to know where you're starting the race. You need to know what you need to be prepare yourself for, because these are challenges you're going to face. I think founders are getting very smart about preparing hard, and yeah,
But when you started the first time, right? Because you were also
yeah,
much younger,
yeah.
right? Were you more vulnerable to these kind of conversation, and now you are more aware because you have an ecosystem around you?
100%, right? And I'm not talking about 7 years ago. I'm talking about 7 years ago, 5 years ago, even when I moved back to India, right? I think that what I have learned is there is going to be noise. Now you have to preserve your energy.
Yeah.
You have to decide what you want to react to. You can't fight everything. And there is this little activist in me at all given points. And I think that's with age. After a point, you realize you cannot fight every battle, and it
Yeah.
is not yours to fight. Um, yeah, so I think now I fight the battles that matter to me. Uh, I don't want to change everybody's thinking, like, yeah, it'll happen over time. I think as we do it, it'll happen.
Yeah. One thing I observe right across your choices in the last 10, 15 years is that you have lived a life with zero regrets. You have lived a life by your own terms, been
Yeah,
an uh, been in your skin,
yeah,
being an extremist, and
yeah,
completely being okay called a rebel, and
yeah.
being okay that hey, this is me, and I may not be a rebel, but I'm different, and I like.
I find a lot of, I really struggle when something is put on me to do. And see, that's what I'm saying, right? I'm not just breaking things for the sake of breaking things. I'm very happy doing normal things also, but
Yeah.
I need to want to do it.
Yeah.
Right? Like I will sit at home and have my dosa and chutney and
Yeah.
coffee, and I get a lot of pleasure in that. I can do the same things with my friends to death, and it will never bore me. Right? But different parts of my life require thrill in a different way. So I think that choice of what I want to keep stable, where I want to get my thrill, where I want to get my satisfaction is very important to me. And I realized that many people are not secure, and it's different people's upbringing, right? I think I enjoy who I am, and I say it with no regrets that I think I have decent EQ. I understand people, and for me, when I understand and give you the liberty to be you, you have to give me the liberty to be me. And if you can't accept me for me, then it's okay. You live your life, I will live my life. So I think that's been who I am. And when you live like that, I will give it my all. And if it doesn't work out, no regrets. Like give it my all. But I think that's simple philosophy in life, and I hope I can hold on to it for really long.
Thank you so much, Bhavna. It was such a pleasure to
It
have
was
this
really nice speaking to
conversation.
you too.
I think it was a very different conversation that I had, and I could thank you for being so open, and and sharing various aspects of your life.
No, thank you for being so easy to speak to. I wish I had asked you more questions. I had gotten to this podcast saying I would ask you more questions. Thanks.
Maybe next time, definitely.
Next time for sure.
Yeah.